Now, if you're a Liverpool fan like me, this weekend has obviously been a very, very good one, hasn't it? But in amongst all the joy, all the excitement at going 11 points clear at the top of the Premier League, the pride at seeing Liverpool win for the first time in 10 years at the Etihad Stadium, some fantastic individual performances, but a great team performance overall. There's been one question that's really been bugging me, really nagging away at me since that full-time whistle was blown yesterday. And it only occurred to me immediately after the full-time whistle yesterday when Salah, Van Dijk and Trent were walking over to the away fans, applauding them for the amazing atmosphere that they'd created after a brilliant away performance from the team. And it just got me thinking, what the hell would we do if all three of those left this summer? That's our club captain, our vice-captain, and after those two, maybe our main leader in the dressing room, Mo Salah. I mean, forgetting the playing side at the moment, forget the fact that they are three unbelievable, irreplaceable players on the football pitch, and probably the best three players in their respective positions in world football. Forget all that. These are the three guys who set the tone, set the culture at the club. The loudest voices on the football pitch, probably the loudest voices off the pitch, the loudest voices in the training ground, I'm sure. They maintain the standards at the club. They frequently raise the standards at the club. They keep everyone in check. That's such a huge thing for the club to potentially lose this summer. Maybe bigger than the fact that they're so good on the pitch. So I was sat there last night after the game and I was thinking to myself, if the worst was to happen, I don't think it will, by the way, but we've got to prepare for that eventuality as Liverpool fans. So then I got thinking about possible captains, possible replacements, vice-captains. So last night, after the full-time whistle had gone, I put the question to you, fellow Liverpool fans, fellow Premier League football fans, you all got involved, and nearly 60,000 of you responded when I asked that question. If those three players were to leave, no Van Dijk, no Salah, no Trent next season, and let's assume the club don't bring in someone as a ready-made captain, let's assume that doesn't happen. Out of the current crop of players, who do you want to see as your future Liverpool leaders? Who's the future vice-captain and captain in the current crop? And here are the answers you gave me. So pretty much everyone in the squad got at least a mention in the conversation. The likes of Diaz, Gakpo, Harvey Elliott, Darwin Núñez even got a few shouts, so I'm not entirely sure how serious they were. I was quite surprised by how few mentions Joe Gomez got, by the way. I would have thought with him being the longest serving player at the club, his name might have cropped up more in this conversation, but there you go. But here are the 8 credible names suggested most frequently by you. So first up in this list is a player who's having an unbelievable season. A surprisingly good season, you might say, and will no doubt make the Premier League Team of the Year, Ryan Gravenberch. Now, Gravenberch's still only 22, but the influence that he's had on the Liverpool team this season, I don't think anyone could have foreseen. Whether or not he's a leader just yet, I'm not quite sure. Obviously, he's still young, he may well mature into a different type of player on the pitch, but he does seem quite quiet, doesn't he? I guess it depends what Arne Slot wants from a leader on the pitch, Does he expect them to be barking orders? We've seen captains in the past who have led by example, haven't we? Who maybe aren't as vocal, who maybe just play their game and actually lead by being the best player on the pitch. And Gravenberch could be that, couldn't he? He could absolutely be that. He is someone that does sees control of games, and he can pick the ball up from deep and carry it forward and really surge Liverpool forward as a team. I think he could be that, but I don't know if he is just yet. So I can understand why he was mentioned, absolutely. I think he's a terrific player. He's almost certainly a player that's going to play a massive part in whatever Liverpool achieve over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, maybe longer, who knows. Hopefully he does, because he's a wonderful player, really, really likeable guy, and I can certainly see why he was mentioned in this list by so many of you. Now, next up in this list is a player who's actually only started 5 games in all competitions for Liverpool this season, but he's already the captain of his national team at 21, Conor Bradley. And it makes a lot of sense why his name was mentioned in this list, doesn't it? Because if Trent Alexander-Arnold does leave the club, then you'd have to imagine that Conor Bradley will be Liverpool's starting right-back next season. I mean, I'm sure the club will dip into the transfer market and get a replacement, but do they get someone in who's maybe a bit more experienced, a bit older, who can kind of support Conor Bradley's development and help him through? Or do they go for someone younger, maybe someone like a Frimpong or someone like that who will compete with Conor Bradley, and maybe Conor Bradley doesn't play as Liverpool's starting right back. Maybe he stays as a reserve, as a backup. And I guess that's the only question mark over Conor Bradley. If all this was to happen, would Conor Bradley be the starting right back? And if he is, then he probably would have a really good shout for the captaincy, or certainly the vice-captaincy, Given that he's the captain of his national team, he's obviously someone who's very, very mature, very professional. He's already proved he's able to handle the big games, the big occasion. He dealt with Mbappe pretty well against Real Madrid, and obviously scored against Chelsea last year. Played really, really well every time he's come into the team, to be honest. So I would have no problem at all with Conor Bradley being named maybe vice-captain if all this did happen. But I don't think he's quite captain material just yet. Look, he's still a young lad. He's still learning the game himself, and maybe he doesn't have the number of appearances for the club just yet to command the respect of a vice-captain or a captaincy, but almost certainly a future captain. A really likeable lad, and I'm sure if he sticks around at Liverpool, which hopefully he does, he can be a very, very good future captain for Liverpool. So there's 6 names remaining now on this list, and I think I'm right in saying that all 6 have at different points in their Liverpool careers already worn the armband, even if only briefly and during the last few minutes of games. I think they've all worn the armband, and starting at number 6, we've got Curtis Jones, who still remains to this day the youngest Liverpool captain ever, when he captained Liverpool against Shrewsbury in the FA Cup in 2020 when he was only 19. Now, since then, his career has, I don't know, I guess I wouldn't say it's stalled, but it maybe hasn't reached the heights that we hoped it would. He's got an awful lot of ability. We know Curtis Jones has got a lot of ability, and he's a very likeable lad, obviously a local lad, a Scouser. He's 24 now, Curtis Jones, and it feels like, although Klopp had immense faith in him, and you could see that, he only ever started maybe a handful of games. I think he made 23 appearances in the league last year under Klopp. Whereas it does feel like he's kicked on under Slot, and Slot really trusts him to start him in the big games, even maybe slightly out of position. We've seen him start against Aston Villa in a different type of role, and again against City at the Etihad. To start him in those games shows he's obviously got real faith in him, just as Klopp did, but he's trusting him a lot more and putting him in the team a lot more. And I just wonder if the captaincy could help him flourish. I think as the local lad, as a Scouser, obviously it would mean maybe more to him than anyone. And again, I can totally understand why, that if Trent's not around, if Salah's not around, if Van Dijk's not around, having Curtis Jones as at least your vice-captain would be a very, very sound choice, I think, by Arne Slot. So next in this list is a player who's already been captain for Liverpool, captains his country as well, but he's a little bit more on the senior side, Andy Robertson. And again, I'm a little bit surprised that Robertson maybe isn't higher in this list. Now, I love Andy Robertson to bits. He's one of my favourite Liverpool players of all time, an absolute legend of the club, won the lot, and I think he's had a bit of unfair criticism this season, actually. But do you know what? I don't think he needs the armband. I don't think he needs the armband, the vice-captaincy. He doesn't need any of it. So for that reason, plus the fact that we'll probably sign a left-back in the summer, and Robertson, even though he'll still be a very important squad player, he probably won't start every game next season. I probably still will captain the club on more than a few occasions in his Liverpool career. But at 30 years old, I think we need to be giving the armband to someone who's going to be at the club for the next 4, 5, 6 years and beyond. So I think there's better options for this. So at number 4 in this list, and again a player who's captained his country last year, Ibrahima Konate. Now, I think we can all agree that Konate is one of the best centre-backs in the world, if not the best after Virgil van Dijk, in my opinion at least. He's still only 25, he's made over 100 appearances for Liverpool, he's already won a number of trophies. I'm sure he'll win a few more trophies before the season's out. And he's very vocal on the pitch, isn't he? He's a real leader, you can see he's well respected in the dressing room. So he's ticking lots of boxes, and I've got to say he would be one of my first choices for captaincy if this scenario did play out. However, he's out of contract next summer. So we've got a potential Van Dijk, Trent, Salah situation brewing with Ibrahima Konate as well. And if he signed a contract tomorrow, I would have no hesitation at all in giving him the captaincy, or certainly the vice-captaincy. I think he's brilliant. He's exactly what you would want to see from a Liverpool captain. And that's the only thing going against him, isn't it? That commitment. You can't give him the captaincy if he's got a year left on his contract. He would have to have a new contract signed in order to do that. And that's probably the only reason that he's number 4 in this list and not 1 or 2 notches higher. So at number 3 in this list, with just over 17% of your votes, was Dominik Szoboszlai, another international captain. And again, with Szoboszlai, he ticks a lot of boxes, doesn't he? I mean, he's playing like a Liverpool captain should. There's a little bit of the Stevie Gerrard about him. Maybe that's maybe high praise just yet. But there's a little bit of that about him in that he can seize control of a game. He can ping one from distance. He could be a match winner on his own. Plus, the way he runs. I mean, he dropped to his feet against City the other day after another game where he covers the most ground, I think the most high-intensity sprints. And he's had those stats throughout the season. I think at different points in the season, he's been most metres covered and most high-intensity sprints in the entire Premier League. So he's someone who can encourage the team with his work rate, who can be a leader by example. I'm not quite sure if he's so vocal on the pitch or in the dressing room. Obviously, we don't see that side of him. And that's the only question with Dominik Szoboszlai that I have here. Because we mentioned it earlier on in the video, didn't we, with Curtis Jones, how the captaincy as a local lad could help him flourish, right? That extra responsibility. And we've seen with captains, maybe not so much at Liverpool, but certainly at other clubs, where the captaincy, the weight of that armband, it's like a bag of bricks, and it just weighs down on players, And look, he captained Hungary from a young age, so I've no doubt at all that he's a very professional player, someone with high emotional intelligence that can handle the responsibility of that job. But it's just whether the captaincy would hinder his performances. That's the only question I've got, is how he would respond to it as a player. Not necessarily his mentality, but how he would respond to it and how he would carry that. So I think, yeah, there's a vice-captaincy in there for Sobbo, and maybe a future captaincy, maybe a deputy captaincy when players come and go off the pitch, but I'm not entirely sure I would make him the leader of the team. I guess that is largely dependent on what Slot sees behind closed doors and how he interacts with other players in the team as well. So at number 2 in this list is the best goalkeeper in the world, Alisson Becker. And I think for a lot of Liverpool fans, myself included, he feels like the obvious choice. If those 3 were to leave, he makes a lot of sense as captain because he's already part of the existing leadership group. He has been under Jurgen Klopp. He's won the lot at Liverpool, won it all, been part of previous successful teams, now doing the same under Arne Slot. Very well respected player in every sense, inside the club, fans absolutely adore him. His teammates, the way they talk about him and interact with him around the pitch and off the pitch at the training ground. Outside the club, the way pundits talk about him, the way opposition players talk about him, he's unbelievable, and he commands respect as one of the best goalkeepers to ever play in the Premier League. But he is still a goalkeeper, and some people have very strong opinions on goalkeepers as captains. Goalkeepers, just by their location on the pitch, find it difficult to communicate with the players at the opposite end of the pitch, the strikers, the wide players sometimes. That's why you tend to see centre mids and centre backs as the captains in teams. That's just the most frequent position, and it's often not always to do with the quality or the mentality of the player. It's just a location issue in some areas. There've been some fantastic goalkeeper captains, absolutely no doubt about that, and Alisson would still be a captain whether he had the armband or not. He'd still be a leader. However, I think that would rule him out. If it was me choosing it and this happened, I probably wouldn't put Alisson as captain. I think he would be my vice-captain. And my captain would be our number 1 in this list. I totally agreed with the majority of you, Alexis Mac Allister. I think Alexis Mac Allister would be the standout choice here. And the reason I say that is because he's already proven at international level, he's got that elite mentality. We've seen it at the World Cup. But he's also doing it at club level, isn't he? He can do that. Even as a diminutive midfielder, he can do that foot-in stuff, that hard graft and challenging back and tracking back. He's a really hard-working midfielder. But he's also doing the, getting forward, getting into the box and nicking goals and contributing going forward as well. So I think he's a real leader. Mac Allister probably wouldn't be a traditional Liverpool captain in the sense that he's maybe not as vocal as Jordan Henderson in that midfield, and he's probably not as all action as Steven Gerrard was. That's probably closer to what Dominik Szoboszlai is. He reminds me a lot of Didier Deschamps, that the water carrier type position. I think he's perfect in Liverpool's midfield in so many ways, and I think he could handle the captaincy. That's the other thing. I think he would set the example, raise the bar, and I would really like him to be Liverpool captain if this does all play out. And seemingly most of you agreed because he got nearly a quarter of the vote. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think we've missed someone out? Do you think there's absolutely someone shouldn't be captain? Do you feel very strongly about it? Even if you're not a Liverpool fan, by the way, if you're a Premier League fan, if you're a football fan, do you think Liverpool could bring someone in from outside? Do you think none of these are right for captaincy? Because that's happened before in Liverpool's history, hasn't it? I remember Paul Ince signed for Liverpool in the late 90s, was it 1997? Liverpool signed Paul Ince, he came in and was immediately installed as captain. Now, could that happen? If so, who do you think that should be? As always, thanks for watching, I really appreciate it. And if you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing the video. It makes a massive, massive difference to the channel. And I'll see you in the next one.